We're live. Welcome to another episode of Real Well Radio. I'm here with Ryan Alexander from I Teach Credit.
What's up, brother? How you doing, man?
Thanks for coming on.
It's good to be here.
So the reason why I built this program was to allow small business owners to come on here, tell their story, educate the audience, and just get everyone on the same page with whatever they're doing. Before we do that, I think one of the most important items that I want to discuss on every episode is, what's your story? How'd you get started? What are you doing here?
So it's actually a funny, great story. Since I was 22, I've lost my shirt twice, meaning I've lost everything. The first one happened when 9/11 happened. I'd gotten into commercial real estate. And then the second time happened when I was 30 years old. I had started a startup, gotten some investment funds and all of my own money. I paid all my debt off from the first one. The second time, I got some investment funds, lost all that. And, I was in my mid-30s and trying to figure out life and saying, what am I going to do when I finally grow up? And I realized so much of my life was held back because of credit. And I said, well, if I could just figure out how to solve this credit problem, maybe things in my life would change. 10 years later, traveling the world, teaching people how to do it for free simply by buying gas, buying groceries, everything on a credit card, being responsible, buying houses and stuff like that. And that's where it came out to I Teach Credit, because nobody's teaching this stuff. Right? Credit involves how many aspects of your life. There's no credit class. There's not mandatory when you graduate high school or college. And they hand out credit cards like lollipops, but nobody teaches you the risks or the rewards. And that's the whole reason I built this program.
100%. And selfishly, I have you on here because I'm somebody who, from age 30 on, had to start from $0 twice, foreclosure, a bankruptcy. And I also used to do mortgages where I was, doing credit repair for certain people. And I was calling creditors to negotiate, lower payments on judgments, at closing, whatever. So, to see you out there and doing what you're doing is really inspiring. And it's something that needs to be out there. It's like, why aren't high schools teaching this? Why are we putting our kids and ourselves, and there's so many adults who just don't understand the very basics of credit, So what was your biggest challenge that you faced? Well, first of all, how long have you had the company?
So I started I Teach Credit back in 2018. It was an idea. In fact, a friend of mine made a bet with me, and he's like, well, you like it, you're that passionate, why don't you do something about it? So literally I went on to GoDaddy, right? Because if you don't take action, no matter what you say, no matter what you think, it doesn't mean anything, right? It's all just, BS. So he made a bet with me. I went on GoDaddy, and of course I searched everything credit, and like so many domains involving credit were like $30,000. And I was like, well, I'm not paying $30,000 for a domain. I Teach Credit was $12. So I bought it for $12. And people are like, I can't believe you bought that domain for $12. I'm like, I can't believe it either. Now, if you search, I've seen credit domains worth $300,000. But so the hardest part was figuring out, like, how could I, no offense to most people, but most people who need credit help, they're broke. So how can I make money in an industry where people are broke and I'm trying to solve their problem?
Right.
It was one of the hardest things. Like, somebody's trying to buy or sell a house, they either have money saved up or they've got a house with equity. So some which way or another, you're getting paid. I have to go and help 56 million people in the United States that have bad credit that are below 600. It was a hard thing to solve. So that was the part that was like, how do I really make money? And I thought I was crazy. And it started in 2018. It wasn't until about 2 years ago I found this guy called Alex Hormozi. And if you're in business, if you're in sales, anything like that, do you know who Alex Hormozi is? Okay. So don't look at his images. When you see this guy, he looks like a bodybuilder. He wears Crocs with...
Nothing wrong with Crocs.
Nothing wrong with it. I love myself. Ankle socks, wife beater, flannel shirt. He's built like this, crazy hair. He's like 30 years old and he makes like $100 million a year. And what he said was, go find a rich person and solve their problem. Something that they can't solve or don't know how to solve or don't want to solve. And so what I started doing was I made a cheap educational platform called 700 Credit Class for people to learn how the credit system works, the basic fundamentals. But then I started doing one-on-one coaching. And the mortgage industry was really, really tough. And I was way more passionate about credit, even though I love mortgages. I loved helping get people into their first house. I loved helping people move out of tough, rough areas in the city and helping them buy a house in the suburbs for their kids to play and all this other stuff. But when it came to it, credit was just one of those things where I knew I could change people's lives by helping them understand how the algorithm worked, helping them realize you didn't have to make a lot of money, you didn't have to be really smart, and it didn't matter where you came from. You just had to be really disciplined. You just had to spend a little bit of time learning, and then you just had give it a little bit of time so that everything you learned you could execute and create the end result you're looking for. And so that was it. And I just kept doing it over. I started for free. Then I was doing it for like $50. Then it went to $100, and now I've throttled and scaled, and now I'm helping people all across the country. And thankfully, my TikTok following is over 94,000 now, and every single morning I get anywhere from 3,000 to 7,000, 10,000 people that go through my TikTok lives.
It's fucking amazing, man. That's good stuff. So before we really dive into the business and what you do and answer some questions, being a business owner is stressful, right? Like we need to implement habits that will allow us to carry out with our day whatever we have to get done in the least stressful way possible,
Of course.
which can be very hard to do sometimes. What are some things that you do in your daily life to calm yourself down?
So I'm a huge believer in two things. One, breathing, which I know sounds really weird, but
I do it in the morning.
Taking a deep breath. And two is cold. And my wife hates this, and most of my neighbors think I'm nuts. I run all year round. But in the wintertime, like 32 degrees today,
right.
Shorts, t-shirt. I do wear gloves, and I do wear a knit hat if it's below 40 degrees. Shorts, t-shirt, and I made the mistake of buying a cold plunge tank. And I'm going to tell you this right now. If my neighbors thought I was crazy before, my neighbor actually called me this morning, and she said, "Are you out in your underwear on the deck for no reason?" Because my plunge is real small. And I said, "No." I said, "I'm cold plunging." And she goes, "How cold is the water?" And today it was yesterday. It wasn't actually today. It was 41.5 degrees. And it's cold. I'm not going to lie. You shrivel. But here's what it does. It puts you into a fight or flight mindset. And if you are where we are right now in life, it's, pardon my French, but no fucks given, man. We have to learn how to deal with stress in society. And I think one of the biggest mistakes or one of the biggest issues we have in society today is people can't handle the smallest bit of stress. I'm not saying people don't have stress in their lives, so please don't take that wrong. But I'm sorry, your fucking latte is not perfect. Grow up. People would love to even have coffee some days, and you're complaining because Starbucks didn't make your order exactly the way you want it to be. So
100%.
When I look at my life like that, being able to handle 41-degree water and focusing on breathing, Wim Hof technique, if you don't know him, he's known as the Iceman. It's that stuff between the breathing, the meditating, and just being cognizantly aware. It has just changed everything for me. It's made me appreciate the credit that I have. It made me appreciate the rough stuff that I had in my life in my childhood. It made me realize crashing and burning was the greatest gift that ever happened to me.
100%.
Because then I learned how to rebound. And now, not only that, but now I'm teaching people how to build credit because my whole goal and mission is to bring as many other people with me as possible. Because it's lonely at the top. It's fun, but it's lonely. And you want to bring as many people as close to you as possible so that other people can live the good life. And that was something I learned from Tai Lopez a long time ago. So
do hard things, and the hard things will be easier when you have to tackle them, right?
Absolutely. I mean, why'd you get into real estate?
I love helping people.
What is your biggest satisfaction in real estate?
I love when first-time home buyers get those keys.
So it's funny you say that because you said you love selling real estate, but it's not even the selling. It's the buying. It's the finding. It's the
it's the process. You have to love the process because it's not fucking easy, bro.
Yeah, it's not, especially in markets like this.
Right.
I mean, I started back in 2007. I first started doing mortgages right as the floor dropped, and I saw people lose their livelihoods. And then I started seeing it again, and that's why I see you're grinding, you're starting this, you're doing ways to reinvent yourself and brand yourself. And I mean, if you're a realtor or a mortgage person or any kind of professional, you are the brand. Okay, it is not. I am sorry, it is not Keller Williams, Remax, Weichert. It is not Quicken Loans, Rocket Mortgage. It is you, right? I brand myself as ITC. I don't put my name on here, but I saw that and I was like, damn, that is awesome. Because at the end of the day, you are the brand. And I think that if you work that hard and for you, it is that process of saying, you want to buy a house? How many deals are easy?
A year? 5%.
Right. 5% are easy, so that's a lot of work. But by being able to deal with stress, by understanding the client and knowing your industry, I just think that that's awesome. And that's exactly how I got into mine because people kept coming to me let me just set this straight. I am not a credit repair person. I actually despise credit repair. I think credit repair is the second biggest scam in this country next to college education. I think college education is the biggest fucking scam because it makes you a permanent ATM machine for banks and credit unions. And even if you declare bankruptcy, it doesn't go anywhere. So at the end of the day, credit's the same way. Credit repair, what do they say? Hey, you sit back, relax. We're going to hand you a fish and we'll take care of everything. 12 months later, you've spent $1,200. You've learned nothing. Your score's the same. And even if they did remove anything, you were in the mortgage space. You know this. They did remove it. 3 months later, it comes back. Why? Because data's gotten fucking smart. So that's why I say, I'm going to sell you a fucking fishing rod. I'm going to show you how that thing works. And then I'm going to teach you how to master it so that you can fish for yourself and your family for the rest of your life. That is creating long-lasting impact, and that is what I love about what I do.
It's beautiful stuff. When did you start that TikTok? You almost have 100,000 people on. That's insane.
Really funny story. So not this past summer, a year ago, so we'll just say it was 14 months ago, 15 months ago, my daughter's getting ready to go back to school. My stepdaughter. I have 3 stepkids, just got married a year ago in October right now. I have 3 stepkids, which is awesome.
Congratulations.
Thank you. So she says, it's the last week before school. I'm, at home watching the kids. I could work from home. And she's like, you got to make a TikTok. And I said, it's just a bunch of 13-year-olds like you on TikTok. I can't make any money. What's the point? She goes, just try it. I made my first video. I had a video when I created the account. They helped me create the account, and it was just like, hey, I'm Ryan Alexander. Really hilarious. Look it up. It looks so stupid. The second video is like, hey, if you want to live a life like this, or like this. And she had me put like a Ferrari, a big house, and like a dream vacation or whatever. And the house wasn't mine, the car wasn't mine, the vacation was. That video went viral. And from that video, she made me create my second video. I made $1,000 my first week.
Beautiful.
From TikTok. Not from TikTok. From people watching my TikTok video and saying, I want that. Just like that. So now, of course, unfortunately, I spoil my daughter more than my other 2 kids every year. But I tell her, and I'll even put, true story, Lululemon. I refuse to buy a $100 pair of leggings. I think it's the biggest waste of money. I don't spend that much money on my own clothes. She got 2 pair of Lululemon, and I put from ITC on the thing. And she looks at it, and she's like, really? She knows I spoil her more just because she helped me make money. And I teach her, go do marketing for old folks like me.
Right.
I don't consider myself old, but older.
Right.
And that's really how it got started. She made me create a TikTok, and I've been banned from TikTok multiple times.
Why?
I don't know why. It's really weird how they operate. I can't talk about prices. Like, I can't mention the price of my course. I can't mention the price of my coaching. They were flagging me for showing parts of my credit cards, even though there's zero information other than my name. Like, my name is Ryan L. Alexander, which is on every credit card. Really, really weird. But from that, I've been able to work with other realtors. I've been able to work with other financial advisors. I've been able to do some of the coolest shit with other people. Oh, you saw it on TikTok. I learned some of the greatest information on TikTok. The ice plunge came from TikTok. I learned a ton of stuff from it. So
I don't have a huge following on TikTok, but I remember I posted one of my stupid videos a couple of years ago, and somebody reached out, had like a North Dakota area code on it. We called. I'm like, oh, this is definitely bullshit. Bought a house in South Philly.
Did he really?
So I don't have like a huge. TikTok's probably one of my lower, following wise, but it works.
I'll say this: TikTok is good for more national or global. Facebook and Instagram is way better for localized. Not that it won't work, and now TikTok has had in its algorithm you put where you're at, and it does help. But Facebook and Instagram, I think, are definitely better for real estate. But for what I do,
gotta diversify a little bit.
It never hurts, right? Yeah. And so like I've seen realtors do really, really well on TikTok, and I've seen some that haven't. But again, at the end of the day, it really comes down to education. I try to make some funny, and I try to make some really educational. Most of my stuff and content is all educational, and some of it's kind of intense stuff. Like we had this conversation before we even started, and that is like, I'm not here to coddle people. Like the real world, they're going to enable you. They're going to sit there and say, oh, it's okay. They're going to tell you retail therapy is good. The fuck it is, because when you spend 2 hours blowing money and then you got to spend the next 12 months paying all the interest off on it, it's no longer good and fun. And I promise you, no 2 hours of retail therapy, whether it's drinking, shopping, whatever, it never makes you feel good, except for maybe experiences. I do think vacations, and there's something about that where you come back and you feel a little empowered. But overall, I mean, it's just never worth it. Just focus on building that credit, being disciplined, and that's why my whole company, it's based on being disciplined, sticking to the basics. And then it leads to things like, I cannot tell you how many first-time home buyers come to me and they're like, oh yeah, credit repair guy, this, that, I've been working 6 months. Give me 60 days, and boom, just like that, 100 points. I mean, I can share this with your audience, right? This is just today. This guy, and I'll share this with the thing. He was a 573 2 months ago. He's now a 699. That's one bureau. And then if you look at the other bureau, where is it at? The other bureau, 704. So he's up over 100 points. And this is not everyone goes up like that, but I had 3 of them just in the last 2 days that their score shot up dramatically in 60 days or less. And it's simply because there's a definitive algorithm that if you learn to master, people can do really, really well very quickly. And that's what I'm trying to get out there. That's why I don't do credit repair. I do credit education, credit coaching, and I literally am like an accountability coach, right? Do you have any coaches you work with?
Of course.
What do you think is what coaching helps you best?
So I'm very disciplined and I stay on myself and I'm always my own biggest critic. But, I just like to, have somebody to bounce ideas off of. Although I didn't talk to anybody about starting this. I just rolled into it. You know what I mean? And here's the name. Hey, Fiverr, set me up this logo. And then we just went with it. You know what I mean? But, it's important to have people to bounce things off of if you aren't 100% sure, or even if you think you are 100% sure. But I think what you're doing with the education is amazing. We're going to get into a little bit like what we should be talking about with our kids and stuff like that. Because I have a 15-year-old who doesn't even want to learn how to tie a tie, right? So like we'll get to this, but like how am I supposed to be like, hey bro, let's talk about like how it's important to build credit. You know what I mean? Before we get into that, what are some common misconceptions? Because kids, we have to teach kids, but also we have to teach adults too, right? Because they weren't taught.
So you made an interesting comment earlier about, with the school system and all that stuff like that. And here's what this is, again, my belief. Anybody can tell me, go pound sand, they don't care, whatever, that's fine. My biggest thing is this. As a parent, you're the number one teacher for your kids. Don't be misunderstood, okay? Do not be misunderstood. Your kids' teachers are there to help educate them on things in life. You're there to lead by example, right? That's my first biggest thing because they're going to follow what you do. So what I would say is credit is easy. And you have to realize that the system is relatively easy. It is designed to make you trip and fall. But by you being the leader and the educator, by you learning yourself, it becomes easier to teach your kids and easier to help them implement the same strategies and the same disciplines. The second thing about credit, the most biggest misconception is income. Many people think that credit is predicated on your income. It is not. Your credit limits may be. Your credit score has zero bearing. When I started building a 730 score, when I got to a 730 score, I was still only making $36,000 a year, okay? And I was telling this story to you earlier too. 8 years ago, I was sleeping on an office floor on a mattress. I lived on an air mattress on an office floor, and I worked there for 1 year. Crashed and burned, lost everything I had, broke up with the girlfriend. And it's not that I didn't have anywhere to go, but I was working for an office, and they didn't care because it was an old house converted. So I spent a whole friggin' year sleeping on a floor. And, I mean, talk about some of the most humbling days of my life. But while I was broke is when I learned to be disciplined because I was like, well, I don't have a lot of money, so let me figure this shit out. Figured it out, and then all of a sudden, here I am now teaching credit across the world. The third thing about credit was, and this was the hard part for me at first, but credit does revolve or include, it requires time, okay? So time is like one of the hidden things that's not really discussed, but when you understand the algorithm, what many people think is that credit takes a long time to build a high credit score. It doesn't. It doesn't take a lot of money, and it doesn't have to take a lot of time. If you understand how to create a diversified credit profile, which people are like, what the hell is a credit profile? It's understanding the types of accounts you have, how long you've had the different types of accounts, what types of accounts that you have, and how you properly manage them. Just like that, you can build a 700 credit score. If you give me any teenage kid, from the day they turn 18, give me 6 months, I'll give them a 700 credit score or higher.
It's beautiful. And I love how you talked about like the humbling times in your life because I had those too, and it's like, can't appreciate the sunshine without the rain.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? And you never want to be like, oh, I wish this would happen. But now looking back, it's like I couldn't imagine, being in a position even close to where I'm at. And I'm sure you feel the same way if it wasn't for those hard times.
Dude, I cry. Like I have some days where I'll sit and cry, but like, holy shit, this is my life. And I think back to where I was. And I was crying then for a different reason because, I've looked down the barrel of a gun before and I've thought about it. And I look at my life now and I'm like, how many people's lives would not have been impacted if that day I quit?
Right.
So it's cool, man. It's fucking exciting.
It's all good stuff. And now you're on the biggest show in the world.
I'm telling you, man, who knows? I think we should sign this and later and see where it goes because it might be pretty huge.
Can you explain some of the key factors that contribute to a person's credit score?
Yeah, so 100%, the key factors are going to be why are you doing it? Why do you buy a house?
That's like the why is everything, anything. You know?
What's his name? The guy. Well, we start with why.
Simon Sinek.
Simon Sinek. Yeah, start with why. He's got a great book. Why are you doing it? Right. So then I was doing credit for me, but there's so many people now where and I don't fight fair. I look at parents who have shit credit or problems with their credit, and I look at them and I say, "You got kids in the background, yeah? Don't tell me you need to think about this. You need to do this for them first. Really for you first. Put the oxygen mask on you first, then on the kids and everybody else. But like, what kind of lifestyle do you really want for those kids? And I promise you, I've been broke and I've been not rich, but I've done really well. And life's just easier when you have more money and you have better credit because cars become more affordable, houses become more affordable. My credit cards pay me over $1,200 to $1,500 a year. They literally pay me every year. That doesn't include the points, the perks, and all this other stuff. I'm talking like simple, straight cash back, and I don't even like cash back. I'm a points guy.
Mm-hmm.
But, for me, it's really about just understanding the basic disciplines and making sure that every single day, credit's broken down into a 30-day window. Every credit card cycle, every payment is due every 30 days, right?
Right.
I break it down into 7 days. If you look at a whole pizza, how hard is that to eat? It's hard. But if you break it down to each individual slice, it becomes way more easy to manage. That's how I break credit down into what I call the 7-day credit cycle. And if you implement that, I guarantee you, just like that, it's going to change your world dramatically.
Talking about a pizza is probably a better analogy than saying how do you eat an elephant, right? Because that's about people's minds just go.
I wouldn't even want to try that. I would do it if somebody said it's good, but.
Are there any lesser known strategies that you haven't talked about?
Yeah.
That you could share with the audience?
All right. So this is the number one strategy that nobody teaches, nobody talks about. And I promise every single person, if you're listening, if you're watching, I want you to implement one rule for the rest of your life, at least in the beginning. Now, if you make several $100,000 a year, you have 800 credit and multiple credit cards with high credit limits, this probably doesn't pertain to you. But here's what I'm going to tell you. The number one strategy I wish I would have been taught when I was in school, when I was younger, as I was growing up, even now, as long as somebody ingrained this one tip in my head, it would absolutely change your life. Use your credit cards for every single purchase possible. Instead of a debit card, instead of cash, use a credit card for every purchase. If you're not using credit, you're not building credit, okay? Pay your credit cards to zero every fucking week. Here's why. Number one, by using a credit card and paying it to zero, you'll never miss a payment. The statement cycle is 30 days. When's your first payment due? It's due 3 weeks after that. So your first payment you don't make until 7 days of using a credit card. Do you not think that's a trap on purpose? It is. Why do I love American Express? Because they teach you to pay your bills in full. But most people, they don't. What do? They do what they're told and what they've been taught in school. And that is, you're going to follow these instructions.
Right.
No, think. If I lent you $100, how fast do you want that $100 back? Do you want it back in 1 week or do you want it back in 4 weeks?
I like to have it back immediately.
Me too. So with credit, pay your credit cards to zero every single week, to zero. The second thing that happens is by paying them to zero every single week, one of the biggest misconceptions is people don't realize if you pay a credit card off in full by the statement due date, you pay zero interest. If you pay in full every single week, not only are you never going to miss a payment, you'll never pay a penny of interest. And number three, how many people in this country have credit card debt running away from them? Especially times like right now. Timestamp in this, we're in January of 2024. Credit card debt is on the rise, okay? The fourth thing, by using credit cards for every single day purchases and paying your cards to zero every single week, you're going to lower your risk factor. By lowering your risk factor, that's lowering your utilization. Utilization is 30% of your score.
Right.
By having low utilization, you can build a higher credit limit. Now people say, oh, that's dangerous. So is a fucking car. But you learn how to drive responsibly, don't you? So by using credit responsibly and wisely and paying it to zero, you're going to then increase your credit limits and increase your credit score. And the fifth, last most important thing, do you like free travel?
I like to travel.
If you could go anywhere in the world right now, and I could teach you right now in the next 3 months, well, 4 months we'll say, in the next 4 months, if you could go anywhere in the world and I could teach you right now exactly how to do it, where would you go?
Hawaii.
What part?
I don't know. Waikiki.
You want to get so, like targeted in your mind.
Right.
Because the more targeted you are and you can see it in your mind, the faster it becomes a part of your reality. Like I was supposed to be in Maui the week the fires broke out.
But you came here instead of going to Maui? Beautiful.
Well, you know, because you're kind of a handsome dude and like
Kinda.
your show's kind of growing. I don't want to blow you know. It's so important to know exactly where you want to go in life. And like my wife and I, she was really disappointed. Like she like cried, but I was like, hey, at least we're not there.
Right.
But I said, where do you want to go next? Costa Rica. So Costa Rica's next, and you know we have an opportunity. My son got selected for soccer to go to Barcelona. Hopefully my wife won't. Well, my wife can see this, but hopefully other people. My son doesn't know. He is a private pod, flying over to Europe.
Wow.
We're going to treat him like a soccer star, paid for by points. It's a $5,000 ticket that we're not paying for because of fucking credit card points. So if you think credit cards are a scam or they're stupid or they're not worth it, Dave Ramsey, pay attention because I'm telling you right now, if you understand how credit works and you use it responsibly, you can have amazing perks, amazing rewards, and it will lead to a much more amazing life, even if you don't make a lot of money.
It's all great information, and all that stuff is true. Most of the people you have coming to you, I'm assuming, aren't in the position. They're probably already coming with debt. They're not in the position to, you know, and you hear that from everywhere, you know, pay it every week, pay it every week. You know, do you suggest, you know, just say they're living check to check and they owe $40,000 in credit card? Do you think about another credit card to pay off all that debt? A consolidation, is that better? Do a cash out refi, if that's an option. Personal loan, like every situation's personal, right? So what do you...
Every situation's different, so there's no one size fits all. That's why one-on-one coaching and consulting really has become a part of my business, because I have some people that they're brand new to credit, they have no credit history, nothing bad, they're just starting brand new. And it's kind of like, well, how do I get a job with no experience if you won't give me any experience? It's the same thing with credit. I can fix that problem just like that. I also have people that have, you know, they're kind of living paycheck to paycheck. They're strapped, maxed out credit cards. That's going to be one type of situation. That may be a little bit harder. They may have to get a second job or a third job. They may have to really hone in on their budget. People don't zero in on a budget, not realizing how important a budget is. And you know in the real estate world how important that is, especially from debt to income ratio. So for those people, that might be a completely different fix. Then I've had two other clients. One client who sold his company for $210 million, has $200 million in the bank, can't get approved for a credit card or a mortgage. Because he made so much money, he says, I'm going to live off of cash. Basically went to all the banks. Now he can't get approved for anything.
Right.
So he calls me up. He says, I don't understand. And he was like furious. I said, listen, you're either going to play by the rules or you're not, because all your money can't buy you out of this one. And that was really, really hard for him. And then I have another guy who makes six figures, 750 credit score, and he just said, I don't know what I'm doing. And so I taught him what to do, and that actually led to another guy who spends $350,000 a month on credit cards. Had no idea what to do. Was putting it all on one card, one of the worst cards he could have used. I taught him in 1 month. Now he's flying me down to Dallas to teach it. His company's got 150 employees. So, like, I'm telling you, if the richest of the rich are realizing the power of credit, then people who are not rich should probably listen up. And you don't have to be rich to have good credit. You just got to be really disciplined. And if you're willing to be disciplined, I'm willing to teach you the way.
It's such fucking awesome stuff, brother.
Dude, it's so fun. And I'm working with some of the, you know, biggest people in the real estate industry in the neighborhood. And I know you know some of them. And it's awesome. Like, you know, you're going to a networking meeting tonight where they're coming together. It's like, at the end of the day, if you can learn from somebody who's on a parallel path from you, there's enough business out there to be had.
Oh, of course.
Because it doesn't matter how handsome I am, some people just aren't going to fucking like me. It doesn't matter how smart I am, some people just aren't going to like me. I don't give a fuck, because you know what? There's 346 million people in this country.
Right.
If I could find 1 million of them that can learn a little bit from me, I'm okay.
As long as we can all, you know, understand that no matter what, like if we're all getting win-win scenarios, you know, that's all you can ask for, and there's enough bread for everyone.
There is.
You know, this has been really awesome. Well, let's start to wind it down with a couple personal questions. How's that?
Sure.
Most of us really have troubles patting ourselves in the back. You know, I know I do. Like, what's one thing that you just can say, I'm Ryan Alexander, and I love this about myself?
So, I'll say this. in the last year, I'm going to try to find a realistic number just so that I can show. I won't show this, but I'll share this. In this past year, I've picked up 724 new customers. I mean,
That's amazing.
724 paying customers in a year. So that coming from a business and an industry, like, do you know any credit education company out there? I don't. I mean, I worked in real estate, I worked in insurance, I worked in mortgages. I don't know a single one. I could tell you 100 credit repair people. None of them had the results that I have. So the coolest thing for me was to take this. It took me 5 years to become an overnight success.
Right.
It took me 5 years of slinging this shit for free, doing free consultations to the point where my wife. I mean, I have 2 NFL players right now that are clients of mine. I didn't know the first one was an NFLer. It was in the 3rd month where he sent me a referral, and he says, "Yeah, I'm from NFL team." I don't want to say it, but it's not the Eagles, and if it was Dallas, I would have helped him. Anyway, he says, "Yeah, I'm so and so from this team." He says, "This guy sent me," and I pulled up his name and I researched. I was like, "Holy shit!" That was a pretty big moment for me too. So like, to go from nothing to what we are now. Again, it took me 6 months or 6 years to be an overnight success. And 6 figures in my first official year, like being on my own, that's a pretty big deal for me.
It's fucking awesome.
And knowing the lives that it's helped.
Right.
I help realtors. Like, guys, this isn't about me. This isn't even about Brian. This is about the ripple effect that this has. Like, he's not doing this just for him. He's not doing this just for me. He's doing this knowing the impact it's going to have on the pond around us. And that is the most valuable part of this. And that's why I thank him. And when he said, "Hey, you want to do this?" Like, I'm like, hell, fuck yeah, let's go. Because I know what my small influence has had. If I can join other ponds and have a bigger influence, like you said, we all live better. And again, it's all about us all living better in my world.
And I told you, this is brand new. I have a long list of people that I either have already talked to that want to come on, or I want to reach out to them. And I thought you could have the biggest impact, in terms of education and stuff like that, because this is so important, and barely anybody knows about it.
Let me ask you a question now. Based on what you've heard so far today, what do you think has been the biggest shock or game changer that you've learned with regards to what you did or didn't know, or what you said you thought you knew or didn't think you knew?
So I know most of this stuff because I've been, in the 500s. Like I said, I filed bankruptcy. I had to go through a foreclosure. But what I think is going to be the most impactful to the audience is the basics, and then build off of the basics, because you got to start somewhere, and the discipline piece is the most important. It's almost like, I don't want to tell anybody not to call you, but if you can't be disciplined, don't start anything.
True.
Very
true.
You're the one that said don't sugarcoat it.
No. I mean, and I straight up tell people, if you're not going to be disciplined, save your money and save my time.
Right.
Because I'm not in business to fail. And if people don't, like, my accountability method, I'm going to see if people are doing the work. Like, you can, I always say, when people want to lose weight, looking at the scale won't help you, right? That's like looking at your credit. When you're trying to build your credit, looking at the score won't help you. What you have to look at are the factors. How do you eat? How do you drink? How do you sleep? And how do you exercise? That'll fix your weight. With credit, it's what's your payment history? Do you pay people on time? Credit card utilization. Are you managing it responsibly? Do you have the right accounts open? All that stuff. So the discipline component is everything.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful. One last question before we wrap this up. If you could be a superhero, have their power, what would it be?
Oh, nobody's ever asked me that question before. If I could be a superhero,
well, have their ability.
I would have to say Superman, because I am scared to death of heights. Even though I've jumped out of an airplane twice, and I want to be able to fly.
It's beautiful. Tell people how to reach you.
Guys, Ryan L. Alexander. So I'm going to say this. Please be very, very careful. I'm going to share this just because on TikTok I have 93,000 followers, 94,100. Please make sure it is Ryan L. Alexander with 94,000. If you can see that, just because I have 20 imposter accounts. If you want to reach me, the best way is probably just info@iteachcredit, or just go to iteachcredit.com. Send me an email. It'll be your name, your phone number, your email address. If I don't respond right away, things have been a little bit busy. Send me an email, info@iteachcredit. Unfortunately, the squeaky wheel gets the oil. Sometimes people message me 2 or 3 times and I finally respond. until I can eventually get some help. But right now, that's the best way to go.
Beautiful. If this has been helpful, subscribe, like, share, whatever you can do. Appreciate everybody. Thank you, brother.
You got it, man. Thanks so much for having me on here.
Got it.